Hello and welcome to my project. I have done my project on ancient artists, and it's a brief study of life and art of our early man. There is a lot of new information and discoveries that have acknowledged that the Neanderthals were really our original artists in ancient times. Now, this handsome guy here, I have nicknamed Adam. I think he is a very good looking caveman, and I think that he's probably a good representation of what the average caveman would have looked like back in the time. This picture here is courtesy of the Smithsonian Institute. It is a picture of a dig site that someone created from southwest France. In this dig site, they found a stone-lined pit that held a 70,000-year-old Neanderthal. And it was very well preserved. It was wrapped in bear skins. And the dig site is called Le Pardilas. And they have been working on this one site for over 30 years. And they have found some of the best archaeological discoveries of the Neanderthals and the way they had their life on a daily basis. And here in 1830, the first Neanderthals were discovered in Belgium. Archaeologists have found more bone samples now of Neanderthals than any other human remains out there. They've also been found in France, Iberian Peninsula, southern Italy, the Ukraine, and Georgia. Now, I love this comic here. It says they're all Neanderthals. That's kind of a funny thing because most people always thought that Neanderthals were very intellectually challenged. But as I went through my research for this project, I was very shocked at the actual intellectual level that they do have. There's been a lot of new discoveries, and on one of the pits that they've just started digging on, they found remains of animals, and they have realized that this area was actually a butchering area where they would have butchered animals and, of course, shared them with their tribe they had. They also buried their dead. They buried them with either bones or skins or antlers of animals they had killed. And they had a community of about 15 to 20 people. And along with these things, they lived a lot of times inside the caves where we found a lot of their art that they created. And we've also discovered some of the rituals that they've also done. One of our leading paleoanthropologists, it's a long word to say, is Guinevere von Petzinger. She has been working in caves and discovering cave art for many, many years. Dr. von Petzinger has done several TED Talks with National Geographic and other outlets, media. And it's interesting when she's talked to people that many people think that the walls art of the caves are mostly animals and hands, which are very common, but there also had many drawings of dots and geometric shapes, as you can see in this picture. As Dr. von Pertzinger kept exploring more and more caves, she's discovered that there was only about 32 different symbols that the Neanderthals used. And the crazy thing is, they used these shapes over a 30,000 year period. And we don't know exactly why they used the shapes or what communication that they were telling by these shapes because no one's really broke that language barrier yet to understand it. But she has discovered this through all of her explorations and all of her studies. Dr. von Petzinger said the symbols were common in all the sites. Now, the thing that she thought was so interesting is that these symbols were used for over 30,000 years. It's a very long time not to have a lot of differentiational aspects to it. And she said that all the sites had these same symbols. So she had a really interesting question to ask. And the question was, why did they come so far into the cave to create this art? What was the purpose of that? As Dr. von Petzinger discovered, these Neanderthals went into the caves about a half a mile to three-fourths of a mile deep. That's a very long walk inside of a cave. So some of the questions that came up is why did they go in so deep to create this artwork? Some speculations to these answers were they may have used the cave for warmth or coolness in summer and winter because of the standardized temperature in caves, which is around 55 degrees. Others have suggested that maybe the natural uses of the caves, like making clay use to create maybe tools they needed, things like that. And then another thing is ritual ceremonies. We have found sites where they definitely have mourned their dead and have buried them. So they did have a ritual ceremony for death as well. So the more I've read and studied about the Neanderthals, the more I've realized that we're not that much different than they were. They did have family. They did have ritual ceremony, which would express grief. They had children they raised, and they created tools and even had a butcher place to butcher their animals. So that was very impressive for me to have learned that about the Neanderthals. When people think of cave art, the first thing that usually comes to mind is the hands and the animals. Um, the hands is actually a very hard design to create. What they had to do is take a blow dart gun, put some ochre in the end of it, then blow it very quickly, and it would spray across the hand. So when they removed their hand, what was left, of course, was the coloration of the hand left over. Um, Very hard to make because I did try to do this in my artwork and could not do it. But it's kind of neat because children nowadays still do use this design. They'll dip their hand in paint. As you can see, this nice little sloth over here to your right, and they'll put the hand down and then make a cute little head on it. I think I did this once with a turkey. An interesting fact is that this hand design was very, very popular, but only for the first 30 years, 30,000 years. And after that, it literally just disappeared and it wasn't used anymore. And after the first 30,000 years and the hands kind of went out of fashion to do, shapes of animals really took over as the most popular art to create, along with some really neat geometric shapes with dots and they used the tools that they had access to back then. So what I thought I would do is try to recreate this art and see exactly how hard it would be to do this myself. So to recreate an Neanderthal-like artwork, I decided to um, try to remake this. I was going to use a rawhide for my canvas instead of a cave wall. And the main reason behind doing it this way was because there's just not a lot of caves you can walk into and repaint artwork on. They would probably consider that graffiti nowadays. But anyway, so this is how I started my project. Now, this really beautiful pigmented dirt that you see here to the right is pronounced ochre. And ochre is just highly pigmented dirt. It naturally occurs, and this is what the Neanderthals would have used to create their artwork. What they would mix with this dirt was normally animal fat or blood, maybe some water. So for me to recreate this, I did not want to get either one of those two things. So I mixed about a tablespoon of Elmer's glue with a few teaspoons of water. I had to mix this for about 5 or 10 minutes, but when I was done, I was really pleased with it. It was a nice, thick, paint-like consistency. It smelled good. And I made my own paint. That was pretty neat. So here you see me sticking, it looks like a pencil stick into a bowl that could be chocolate pudding, which is actually paint. Um, I found some sticks in the yard and found a few that could represent like a pencil or what they would have used back in the caveman days. And I dipped it in, and the consistency of the paint was very nice. It was a medium, wasn't too runny, wasn't too thick. I was able to actually dip it to make an outline because I decided to recreate a buffalo. I'll let you know this, recreating this kind of artwork was extremely hard with a stick. My hat's off to the Neanderthals for creating what they did. It was very hard to do. My little buffalo here, as you can see. I did use my fingers for the inside of the body to kind of get that color to saturate a little bit better. And if you look at the rock at the bottom, you can see where I did touch it a few times just to show you how colorful this paint was, even on just a regular rock that I had in my yard. It's very beautiful coloration. So as you can see, I've added a few more the geometric dots down the side. And then I decided to kind of make this as a hunt scene, which was very popular in the Neanderthal days. And looks like this guy has caught himself a buffalo. And I did at the very bottom right hand of the page, you can see my fingerprints there kind of smearing down. I tried to kind of give it my signature of that I created this piece, which is kind of what I think they probably would have done back then. My final thoughts of this project, it really opened my eyes. Before, I really thought that the Neanderthals were not very intelligent. Um, it was even an insult I probably have used in the past. But after I really researched their life and the way they lived and their artwork, it took a lot of artistic ability to create what they did. It took a lot of ingenuity to live the way they did. So I was just super impressed, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope that I did inspire you a little bit about the Neanderthal life to read about it. And I had a blast making that artwork. It was a lot of fun and definitely challenging. Thank you all.